In Major League Baseball, players have always pushed the rules, and sometimes they've pushed so far the league had to change them. It's 1951, and this one swing changed how pitchers could pitch. In 1970, one catch changed how fielders' glove sizes were regulated. Today, we're diving into those moments and taking a look at players who broke or bent rules so dramatically, MLB had no choice but to change them. We'll look at some famous historical cases, some lesser-known ones, and then fast-forward to more recent times to show how the game keeps evolving because of its players. Welcome to Strike Zone. Let's get to it. In 1920, Cleveland's Ray Chapman stepped in against Yankees pitcher Carl Mays. The ball was dark, scuffed, and hard to see, and it struck Chapman in the head. He died the next day, the only player ever killed by a pitch. MLB responded by requiring fresh, clean balls throughout the game so hitters could actually see what was coming. It also accelerated the spitball ban that same year and fueled the slow march toward batting helmets. One tragic moment showed baseball how fragile the line was between tradition and safety. Cobb wasn't just fast, he was vicious. Cobb slid into bases spikes first, cutting up fielders and daring anyone to stand in his way. His tactics were so brutal that other teams complained of intentional injury. MLB eventually tightened its sliding rules, one of the earliest MLB rule changes driven by a single player. Today's bona fide slide protections for infielders can be traced all the way back to Cobb's sharpened intimidation tactics. He forced the league to admit, hustling hard was fine, but weaponizing your cleats was not. Hall of Famer Gaylord Perry made a career out of the spitball, or at least convincing batters he was throwing one. He touched his cap, wiped his brow, licked his fingers, sometimes real, sometimes bluff. Though the spitball had been banned since 1920, Perry's antics forced MLB to crack down on enforcement in the 1970s. Umpires were given power to check pitchers and eject them for using foreign substances. Perry even wrote a book titled Me and the Spitter. He made a joke out of cheating, and MLB had to get serious. Jackie Robinson broke barriers in more ways than one. Beyond his courage integrating baseball, he also brought a bold base-running style the league hadn't seen before. In 1955, Robinson famously stole home in the World Series, electrifying fans and embarrassing pitchers who weren't used to such daring moves. His aggressiveness pushed umpires and rule makers to clarify balk calls and pitcher movements, making sure hurlers couldn't endlessly feint or delay just to stop speedsters like Jackie. Robinson's steals weren't just about swiping bags. They forced MLB to tighten the fine print on how pitchers could hold runners. In the 2015 ALDS, Blue Jays slugger Jose Bautista launched one of the most dramatic home runs in playoff history, and then flipped his bat sky high in celebration. It wasn't against the rules, but it broke the game's unwritten code. The fallout was immediate. Bench-clearing brawls, endless debates about respecting the game, and MLB stepping in with warnings and fines for excessive on-field celebrations. Bautista's flip didn't just win a game, it sparked a new era of league oversight, where MLB had to balance player expression with sportsmanship. In the 2000 World Series, Roger Clemens fired a fastball that shattered Mike Piazza's bat. As shards flew, Clemens scooped up the jagged barrel and hurled it down the first base line, narrowly missing Piazza. The moment was chaotic, dangerous, and replayed endlessly. MLB responded by emphasizing stricter enforcement against throwing equipment and escalating penalties for anything that endangered another player. Clemens may have claimed he thought it was the ball, but the league knew it couldn't risk another superstar dodging a flying weapon. Changing jersey numbers seems harmless until you consider merchandise. When players swapped mid-season, teams were left with mountains of unsellable gear. MLB fixed it with a CBA rule. Players must notify the league by July 31st of the previous year if they want to change numbers. Miss the deadline, and you have to personally buy out all unsold stock. Players like Joe Ryan and Carlos Santana have felt this rule firsthand. It's not about competitive balance. It's about protecting the business side of the game. At the 1970 All-Star Game, Pete Rose barreled into catcher Ray Fosse at home plate, injuring him badly. For years, collisions like that were accepted and just considered part of hard-nosed baseball. But decades later, after Buster Posey's devastating injury in 2011, MLB finally had to step in with Rule 7.13. Catchers can't block the plate without the ball, and runners can't intentionally crash into them. Rose may not have broken the rules that night, but his play started the long road to changing them. Dodgers ace Don Drysdale intimidated hitters and runners alike. On the mound, he used hesitation moves and half-fakes that tied runners in knots. The balk rule existed, but it was vague and Drysdale exploited it. Managers complained constantly, and MLB eventually rewrote the rulebook with a detailed list of what pitchers could and couldn't do. Today's precise balk rules, covering flinches, pauses, and pickoff moves, are thanks in part to Drysdale blurring the lines until the league had no choice but to clarify. Rickey Henderson stole more bases than anyone in history, and more catcher signals than most managers could handle. His unparalleled speed forced MLB to take a closer look at how runners were distracting pitchers and delaying games. Over time, Henderson's dominance contributed to tighter enforcement of balks and pickoff moves, and later inspired pace of play rules to keep stolen base attempts from slowing things down. Henderson didn't just steal 1,406 bags, he stole MLB's attention and forced the league to adapt. In 1983, Royals star George Brett hit a go-ahead homer off Goose Gossage, only for umpires to rule him out. Why? His bat had pine tar more than 18 inches up the handle. Brett stormed out of the dugout in one of baseball's most iconic blow-ups. MLB later clarified the pine tar rule. Excess pine tar wouldn't nullify a play. It would just result in the bat being removed from the game. One furious outburst literally rewrote the book on what sticky stuff was too sticky. In 2003, Cubs slugger Sammy Sosa shattered his bat and out popped a cork. MLB already banned corked bats, but Sosa's star power put the issue in the spotlight. The league immediately reinforced inspections of bats, with random checks becoming more common. Sosa claimed it was just a batting practice bat that slipped into a game, but the damage was done. His misstep reminded everyone that MLB had to stay vigilant, even when the rules were already on the books. We talked about Pete Rose and Ray Fosse, but the real tipping point came in 2011 when Buster Posey broke his leg in a violent home plate collision. Posey was the face of the Giants, and his injury sent shockwaves across baseball. The result was swift. MLB formally enacted Rule 7.13 in 2014, banning the most dangerous home plate collisions. Posey's injury turned decades of debate into action. When stars go down, leagues listen, and Posey's pain sealed the deal. In 1951, Browns owner Bill Veeck sent Eddie Gaedel, a 3'7" pinch hitter, to the plate. Gaedel crouched in the box, presenting a strike zone barely the size of a postcard. The pitcher had no chance. Gaedel walked on 4 straight pitches before being replaced by a pinch runner. The stunt drew headlines and outrage, and MLB acted fast. The league put strict controls on contracts and required commissioners' approval for any unusual players. Gaedel's walk became a piece of baseball folklore and ensured that owners couldn't turn the game into a circus again. In the 1920s and 30s, Washington Senators coach Al Schacht was known as the Clown Prince of Baseball. He'd wave bats, mimic players, and dance around in the coaching box, distracting both pitcher and hitter. Fans loved it, but opponents didn't. MLB eventually tightened rules on what base coaches could do, restricting them to the coaching box and banning antics designed to interfere with the game. Today, coaches are mostly silent traffic cops, and it's thanks to Schacht's Comedy Act that the lines between entertainment and gameplay had to be drawn. Back in 1908, Hall of Famer Nap LaJoie exposed a loophole in scoring. At the time, sacrifice flies weren't consistently counted, meaning batters could be penalized with an out even if they advanced a runner with a fly ball. LaJoie's knack for exploiting situational hitting stirred debate, especially as his batting averages were affected. Public outroar and pressure from managers led MLB to tweak the rule multiple times in the following years, until the modern sac fly rule finally stuck in 1954. Thanks to LaJoie and his productive outs, we no longer punish batters for doing exactly what their team needs. In the 2016 playoffs, Manny Machado and others made headlines for hard slides into second base that upended infielders. One infamous incident saw Chase Utley barrel into Ruben Tejada in 2015, breaking Tejada's leg. Machado and others kept pushing the boundaries, and the league couldn't ignore it. MLB introduced the Utley rule, requiring a bona fide slide into second. Players must stay within reach of the base, can't change their path to initiate contact, and must make a legitimate attempt to reach the bag. What was once good hard baseball became a clear violation, and infielders finally had some protection. For years, pitchers had used pine tar, sunscreen, and even homemade goo to improve grip. But in 2021, MLB discovered pitchers were dominating like never before. Spin rates skyrocketed, offense plummeted. The sticky stuff arms race had gotten out of hand. MLB launched mid-season inspections, umpires checking hats, belts, and gloves for foreign substances. Pitchers like Max Scherzer and Sergio Romo made headlines with awkward on-field checks. The crackdown forced pitchers to adjust. Offense rebounded, and the game shifted again. One summer of sticky fingers changed the balance between pitcher and hitter almost overnight. In 2017, national star Bryce Harper charged the mound after being hit by a pitch from Hunter Strickland. On the way, he flung his helmet toward the pitcher and missed badly, a moment replayed endlessly on TV. Funny or not, MLB was not amused. The league already discouraged equipment throwing, but Harper's high-profile meltdown forced the issue. MLB cracked down with automatic fines and possible suspensions for players who throw bats or helmets in anger, especially if it risks hitting someone. So, while Harper's helmet didn't land where he intended, it landed him in the rulebook. One wild toss made clear. Lose your temper if you must, but lose your equipment and you'll pay for it. For decades, home plate was a free-for-all. Runners barreled in full speed and catchers braced themselves for impact. Nobody embodied that toughness more than Carlton Fisk, who endured violent collisions throughout the 70s and 80s. He wasn't the only one, but he became the poster boy for the debate after countless bruises, broken bones, and even concussions left teams questioning whether losing a star catcher was worth a single run. MLB resisted change for years. Collisions were seen as part of the game's grit. But the tipping point came later, when Buster Posey suffered a devastating broken leg in 2011. That injury, piled on top of decades of brutal crashes like Fisk endured, finally forced MLB to act. In 2014, they introduced the Buster Posey Rule, limiting collisions at home plate. Fisk took the hits, Posey sealed the deal, and baseball finally drew the line at home. Baseball has always been more than just a game of hits and home runs. It's a living, evolving sport, shaped not just by umpires and commissioners, but by the players themselves. From Ty Cobb's spikes to Bryce Harper's helmet toss, from Eddie Gaedel's tiny strike zone to Buster Posey's fateful collision, each controversy, stunt, or daring play forced the league to rethink the rules. And each rule change tells a story about the balance between tradition, fairness, and safety, and how far players can push the game before the lines get redrawn. So here's a thought. The next big rule change could be happening right now on your favorite team's field. Maybe it's the next player bending a rule nobody thought possible. A hidden hero, a blazing fastball, a daring steal, or a clever play that rewrites what's acceptable. Baseball evolves because players push boundaries, and sometimes that's exactly what makes the game thrilling. We want to hear from you. Which MLB player do you think forced the biggest rule change in baseball history? Or is there a modern player today you think could shake things up? Drop your answers in the comments and we'll feature some of the best ones in a future Strike Zone video. And hey, don't forget to subscribe to Strike Zone for more deep dives into the history, controversy, and the stories behind every pitch, swing, and play. Thanks for watching, and remember, the game is always changing, and so are the rules. Catch you next time.